So I am delighted to have as a guest Michael Ruocco. He must be the most connected and one of the most respected UI UX professionals in London. Evangelist of design, UIX design, and also the founder of youandi.london. youandi.london, I've actually attended a couple of these sessions, and they're amazing in terms of giving individuals from outside the industry an opportunity to learn about UI and UX design, what is needed in terms of the tools, but also what is needed in terms of themselves to kind of get into the industry. So he kind of gives a real sort of transparent, open discussion to groups of people to get the knowledge and insight into that sector. So amazing. And Michael, your career spans from way back in the day. I'll kind of cover that off in a minute, but also in terms of the testimonials and the feedback on Trustpilot, I think you've got 90 plus reviews, and out of 5 stars, possible stars, you've got 4.9, which is, mate, that is just amazing. So welcome. Thanks for being a guest.
Yeah, hi Ian. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Great to have you on board. Great to have you on board today.
Thank you.
So yeah, so what have you been up to? Tell me a bit about what's been on the agenda recently for you.
I mean, so since I finished working for Shell in mid-May, and since then I've been writing a book, How to Hack Your Way into a career in UI and UX. So that kind of goes along with my courses that I'm doing for youandi.london. So I've been doing that for the last 7-8 weeks. I'm on the 3rd draft. The editor is just like, no, you need to do this, you need to do this. So I was ready to sell at first draft, but of course, you know, I struggle with punctuation and rubbish, things like that. And so
go back and redo it.
So I had to get an editor on board, and then it was like a can of worms. You know, this bit that you thought was fantastic isn't so fantastic. So then I had to go in and restructure. But we're kind of nearly there. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, you might be seeing it on Amazon and iBooks and places.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, I mean, let me just kind of make for the record, youandi.london.com. Sorry, youandi.london. So you is spelled out as a word. So it's YOU, then ANDI.London. For anyone out there who wants to go and check out what Michael does. And it's the first I've heard about this book coming out. So I'm assuming the book kind of ties into giving people an insight into, for example, the difference between UI and UX, what side of the fence they want to be on. Give us a bit of an idea about the content.
Yeah, so it's about building that. So it's the structure of how do you get involved in UI and UX design, or how do you become a UI UX designer? And it's really geared to all those people that don't know how to get into the industry, because it is rather elite and it's a little bit expensive. You know, you either go to, you know, you pay your 60 grand for a degree course over 3 years, and then after 2 years, you know, after the 3 years, your first 2 years are out of date anyway. Or you go along to General Assembly and you pay 10, 12 grand, £9,000 for a 3-month course, and you come out with a certificate. And it started for those guys that were like, you know, hard to reach. So the guys that may have been in the army, or guys that were in prison, or just turned left out of school instead of turning right. And I just wanted to, you know, give a little bit back. I had this information in my head, you know, from the last 30 years of making things work on a screen. And I thought it'd be interesting to see how many people are out there that, you know, that have been forgotten by the system, that want to do things like this, that wanted to change their lives. And so I started the course, and I was just overwhelmed by the amount of attention it was getting through LinkedIn. And I was doing workshops, you know, twice a week to 25, 30 different people. And these were like, you know, guys that just, they couldn't get on the ladder. They didn't know how to get on the ladder. But once you point people in the right direction, you'll find that, you know, the fire starts, and it's
fantastic.
And they get going.
So, I mean, how many courses have you done? So, like the evening sessions, like the ones that I attended, for example? Because I've got an interest.
Maybe 500.
Really, that many now?
Well, I mean, it's been going now for 3 years, and, you know, so I mean, I've done lots of one-on-ones, you know, 2 or 3 people, but then I've done lots of 30 people in one workshop. But it's been going for a while now. I remember I had a spate of doing them through lunchtimes and evenings as well, you know, over about 3 months. You know, it was just, whenever I wanted to do them, there was always people that wanted to do them. So, but then it got too much, and so I just kind of, you know, I ramped it back a little, because I just
Superb.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. We're going to touch back on that in a minute. But I mean, also want to give the viewers and listeners an understanding in terms of some of the companies that you've worked for, some of the clients you've worked with back in the day, 94, 95. I mean...
Oh, yeah, because I'm super old, right? So, yeah. I've been around forever.
You look amazing.
I do,
so,
don't I?
I mean, we've got Ogilvy and Mather on there, right?
Well, yeah, are they still going? I don't know. Are they still going? I can't remember. I think that was in the 90s.
Yeah. But I mean, they're all just looking at, your LinkedIn profile, and I mean, they're all big bangers on there. Saatchi and Saatchi, House of Fraser, DDB, AKQA, Jewel. Do you know Fran Murawski?
No, I haven't been to Jewel, I don't think, for about 7-8 years. Are they still going?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. But I know Fran used to work there. I don't know whether he's still there. Accenture, Barclays, Camelot, and then Shell. I mean, they're all sort of like top tier brands. So I mean,
well, it's the beauty of having that career is that once you've got one top tier guy on your CV, then you attract other top tier guys because they all want to know the same question: can you work for top tier guys? Because then you're used to the so-called pressure, or you don't mind working all weekend, or blah blah blah. And as a young person, you think that you don't have a choice. That you have to work all weekend, and if you're a full-time employee, then we got to points in the week where we were doing pitches at the weekend, because if you're pitching for British Airways and it's a Friday night, you're there to do the work. So they would push you through 24 hours and 36 hours. They would get you cabs home. I mean, I live in Brighton, and they were paying for cabs that were £150 to get me home, and then a cab to pick me up. And then the cab to take me home again. £600 in cabs.
When was this? So when was that going on? I mean, obviously you made the switch from like doing the design stuff to the UI.
This was 90s. This was 90s. This was advertising when I was doing like art direction and typography. When typography's
there's always been money in that game, though, isn't there? There's always been money.
There was a lot of money in advertising in those days.
Yeah.
I was working in Saatchi when they built their own pub, because we was over the road from I can't remember the name of the pub, the Carpenters. In just off Tottenham Court Road, and Morris wanted to buy the Carpenters pub because the whole company was over there during lunch times and every night, blah blah blah. And so he made an offer, and the guy said, "No, I'm not selling." So they decided to build their own pub in the car park, which was called the Pregnant Man. And so this was the sort of environment you were in, where there was so much money rolling around, and that attitude just attracted clients. They wanted to be part of that. They wanted to be part of the guy who would build his own bloody pub in a car park.
It was cool, wasn't it, to be associated with the Saatchis?
It was cool to be part of Saatchi, and it was cool to be part of these agencies, that you see in I think, is it Mad Men? What is it, the 50s thing on Netflix? Is it Mad Men? I think it's Mad Men. But that's how it was, even in the 80s. It was dying away a bit then. I think it was its heyday was the 70s, 60s, 70s. But when I experienced it, which would have been at the end of the 80s, early 90s, it was exactly the same.
Yeah, but I think it's still quite popular in 80s, Saatchi, because of the affiliation with the Art, the Two Brothers, the Conservative Party campaign as well.
It was it was just the rock and roll agency, and it attracted the right creatives, and you were working all the best accounts. And once you got bored there, you could take those accounts or the experience of those accounts and take them to the next agency, because the next agency also was Saatchi and Saatchi. And then you was at that agency, which was basically Saatchi and Saatchi, called AKQ&A or DD&B or Bates-Dorland or whatever. And you'd go from one big account to another. And because I worked on big accounts, I just kept attracting other big accounts. And in the end, even with, digital, when I went digital in the late 90s and started building websites, it was the big companies, because they were the only ones building websites in the late 90s.
Right. So when you started going to websites and going digital, was that when you was with DDB, that sort of around 2000-ish?
I mean, if you're looking at my LinkedIn profile, you probably know more than I would right now. But I mean, because I'm old, I tend to forget yesterday.
DDB around that sort of time, I suppose, and that's when you started getting into the UI UX.
So that it wasn't called UI UX then; it was just called web design. So you was a web designer. There were no apps. We had no smartphones. So can you build a website? I just used to say yes to everything, because no is a closed door, right? So I would say yes. So if someone called me up on Thursday and said, "Can you build this website next Wednesday?" I can definitely do that. And then I'd go away and learn how to build websites. And I'd show up, and I would know slightly more than they would. So that made me the master in every room. But I didn't know anything. But no one knew anything. So I wasn't alone. So I was making it up as I went along. And of course, if you make it up, you become the thing that you're making up. And so by making up a lot of these companies, I started moving away from typography and the beauty of type, which I love, into making websites, which only gave me 8 fonts to choose from. And one of those was Comic Sans, I believe, which is basically, it's okay to use if you're a 10-year-old girl standing behind a lemonade stand. And so I gave up the purer faith, the creativity for websites and to make websites. I sold out effectively.
Well, yeah, no. Well, I mean, it's the future, right? I mean, don't get me wrong.
It wasn't the future then. Everyone thought it was just going to be a flash in the pan, and it was going to last, 1-2 years tops, and then that would be it. And of course, those companies that thought that just went by the wayside. And the guys that invested, even though we had the dot-com bubble burst early 2000, people hung around, and it was the larger agencies that aren't around anymore. The big agencies of the 80s, and they're gone.
Yeah, I remember that time. I mean, I was selling advertising actually before getting into recruitment, and I was living in the States between 97 to 2002.
Yeah,
5 years over there. And I remember I was selling advertising space on print, and then it was all coming up that everything's going to be going digital. And I wasn't, thinking, well, what's going to happen to selling advertising space online? I've never done that. How's it going to work? And because of that scenario, straddling either side of the traditional print side or the digital side, I had a career change. I got into recruitment because publishing companies didn't know what was going to happen. The newspapers was kind of toying with the idea of going digital or staying traditional. So I hedged my bets and kind of came out of it and kind of got into recruitment. So I remember that era very, very, very well. A lot of confusion. There's no way of measuring digital at the time either.
No one knew where we were going to go, and there had to be a window. There's generally a window. I mean, I think I've got one of your questions where I'll speak of this later on, but generally there'll be a something that will wake you up to the fact that you need to change.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to become a dinosaur.
Definitely.
And it's like holding on to. It's like holding on to your old mobile phone because you like the way it works, And now, if you look at your mobile phone in 2010, you compare it to the phones now. I mean, it's so obsolete. But that's how some people are. They don't want that change. They want to stay with what they know. They're happy there, etc., etc. But if you don't embrace change, you just get left behind. The gap between you and those that are ahead of the game is incredible. I think
it's so evident now. People have woken up to that they've got to be open for change, and that they are aware that if you don't evolve with change, then you are going to be left behind. Because it's moving so rapidly now, a lot quicker than it ever has done, especially with social media, LinkedIn, video. And
it's one of the problems with digital is that the larger the company, the longer it takes for things to get out. So you have big corporates that have said we're going to do digital. We're definitely going to do digital, and then they take 18 months to release a product.
Right. Yeah.
And by that time, you've got 4 new iPhones have come out and 34 new Android phones. And we've stopped using our phones, and it's just, they're so behind the curve. So it's some of the startups that are changing things. But of course, they stop becoming startups. And they become like, mid-sized companies, then big-sized companies. And even they're prone to not wanting to change things. So it's the mid-range really that are kind of killing it right now, and the startups, of course. But startups generally don't have enough money, and they don't have enough people to do the job. And everyone wants to release an MVP, which is a minimum viable product, but you can't get a good feedback on minimum viable products, etc.
Okay, that's good. Get a good angle on that. So let me just ask you a bit about from a UI UX perspective in the typical digital transformation journey. Where do you think UI UX, or where has UI UX fitted in your experience?
Generally, it's the experimentation phase or the sandbox phase. So it's after. Let's say goal setting and strategy, you would then have this sandbox moment where you're meant to play and find out what this thing can do. So user testing, user research, how do people respond to the designs? Is it going to go forward? What should we release first, etc. So there's lots of questions to ask. I think that it's quite a difficult phase because there are metrics, but they change, they fluctuate. They're in a constant state of flexing. So we don't know how things are going to be perceived or how people are going to take them. And it's only by user testing that you finally really know. But ultimately, even with user testing, you know, so you pick five people and you can say, well, with those 5, we can probably scale that up and we would know how the population would respond to this app. But ultimately, you don't know how people are going to respond, you know, until it's out in the market. And that can kill an app, and that can kill a business. You know, if your digital shop isn't firing on all cylinders, then that's your business gone.
Yeah, without
it's
doubt.
As simple as that. If you don't have a digital arm and you need it, and we're moving into 2020, 2030. I mean, imagine where we're going to be in 5 years' time, 10 years, 15 years' time. It's incredible. You must have a digital presence, and it must be firing on all cylinders. And there's a road to that. There's a process to that. And the bigger the company, I've found, the more reticent, the more resistant they are to that process.
Difficult to change it at sea level. You know, it's big, massive, because changing is just going to be too hard a task to do. I think a lot of companies, they know they need to do it. But
there's lots of legacy problems with bigger companies. And the guys that are generally are the threshold guardians are the guys that are causing the problems, because they don't want to change, because their company's made so much money doing it without digital. So why should we do digital? And when they realise that if they don't do it, they're going to be obsolete in 5 years' time. You know, it's the threshold guardians, the stakeholders.
But did you not think a lot of that they're kind of scared as well to maybe be accountable to make that decision? It's like a top C-level decision.
I mean, I find that the larger the company, the more managers involved, the more guys getting in the way. The one company I worked for, I mean, the people at the digital coalface were dwarfed 4 to 1 by the amount of managers in the same team. So we had a team of 5, and there was about 19 managers. So what would happen you would have a project would have failed somewhere else, and because this person was full-time and they didn't know what to do, then they would throw him or her into a project that was going along already. And so you'd have another person who would also need to do meetings about meetings about meetings about meetings. And it just gets in the way of getting things done.
Crazy, nothing's getting delivered. Nothing's getting delivered, right?
I mean, I worked somewhere for 18 months and not one project got delivered. I mean, you could have employed me for one day and fired me the next.
Crazy, unbelievable. It's a shame. I think I said to you before about this in terms of, from a design perspective, you know, which you're massively passionate about as a designer, whether it's graphic design or actually web design, and bringing something to the fore after a year, 18 months, like what you just suggested, and then it not being released. I mean, it just must take the wind out.
It's really
demoralising, right?
Well, it's hard as a creative. You know, if you love like the pure face and the beauty of design, which I do, it's quite frustrating that you go somewhere and you want to change the way they think. You want to change the way people think about design. And ultimately, you can't change people.
Yeah, especially the role might have been sold to you in a certain way that, you know, you're going to go into this big company, you think, oh my God, this is my moment. And, you know, I'm going to go in there and change this. But even the recruiter, headhunter, initially from day one might have sold it to you. And you said, okay, fine, you're going to get the opportunity to do this. And if you right, great, you know, and you're like,
well, it's up to you. So once you're somewhere, it's up to you to see how much you can change people's perception of design, right? So it's up to me. If I'm in there and they're not changing, then ultimately, you know, I'm to fail. If my designs are so amazing, you know, I'm going to turn heads and open doors, etc. But the further you go up the ladder, the harder it is to turn those heads.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah, they're further and further away from the design phase, right? When it's at my level, so I may lead a team or I may be doing the work. I mean, I'm a bit hands-on still. I like creating and then farming those designs out and seeing people's reactions. Okay, let's go to the next level and the next level. And the further you move up the ladder, the harder it becomes, because the guys that you experience as you get to the top of the ladder are the guys that don't embrace design.
Dinosaurs, yeah, could be like dinosaur type people. Interesting. Yeah. Really, really interesting. Well, okay, let me move on a little bit. What's the best piece of work? I know you've worked for Lloyds in the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, I mean, the best thing that I've done the last 2 years is my book. I mean, I don't really have a best piece of work. I mean, I've had quite a few pieces of work that have been out there, but I mean, I've been passionate about the work up to a point. But you know, I've worked for like John Lewis and Lloyds and Nike, Shell, Barclays. I've worked for everybody, but I think it's their pantomime. It's not my pantomime. If I'm working for Shell, it's their work. It's not my work. And so the book for me means obviously more.
Yeah, it's more personal. It's more personal.
Yeah, it's an achievement, right? If you haven't ever written a book and you write a book, that's an achievement.
But and also, I suppose for the viewers and listeners, I mean, in terms of the work you've done, has it been more web-based or more app-based over the last couple of years?
It's I would say more app-based. More app-based. I mean, we generally we start with mobile if you want that full responsive experience. A lot of companies just want to see a desktop experience because there's no purpose to a mobile experience if 95% of their market is looking on a desktop.
Right.
But I always push an app and I always push the mobile experience because in 5 years' time, are we going to have desktops?
Yeah, I mean, some industries
everyone is shopping on their mobile. Everyone is doing everything on the mobile. I mean, I work on my desktop because it's a greater worker space. But I imagine that mobile is going to take over completely in 5 years.
I don't know
if it hasn't already, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the designers, I imagine you'd always have the Macs available to you because you can just be more visually engaged and you can see things, spread things out. So from a design perspective, I think you're always going to have that.
You've just got a little bit more real estate, Ian, with a Mac and a larger screen.
Whereas, exactly.
But I do enjoy apps. I mean, there's still loads of discovery with app work, and it's quite rigid. If you stick to making native designs, and I like that. You see what beauty you can eke out of San Francisco, which is the Apple font, or Roboto, which is the Android font. So I like the app stuff, but I like it all, right?
Okay, good, superb. Okay, I mean, you've done really well, climbed the ladder in your career. We touched on it in terms of some of these top tier companies and brands that you've worked for, and now you've got the book and so forth. So, what's next for you? What do you aspire to do in the next? Once we get over this COVID, I mean, what do you?
Well, I think the ladder. I mean, I've climbed my ladder, but I think everyone has a ladder. Different moments in your life, the ladder invites you to step on the bottom rung and see how high you can take it. And I think you're receptive to those moments, or you're not. I mean, some people are happy not to step on, and they like working for others and taking the 4-week holiday or the pension, the security. But there are others that take the chance to try and create something anew. And so I think, both routes are especially equally as valid. You just have to find the one that works for you.
And what's working for you?
The ladder. I'm trying to find new things, right? And so I went from kind of art direction and typography into website design, and then when the iPad came out, I moved over to digital design, and that's when UI really and UX came into the public consciousness, UI and UX, and then I've been doing apps and kind of leading teams, etc., up to this point. But then I thought, well, I'm going to write the book that goes with the course, and I've never written a book before. But it's a case of taking the plunge and seeing what you can do. Because now I've written a book, and so for the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully, I'm going to write books.
Yeah. Okay, so
you're right. Get someone to buy this one book.
Well, that's what I mean. So is that where you'd like to go then, down that road, more than being hands-on in terms of designing?
I do like leading teams, but ultimately I like doing it. I like creating stuff, creating something from nothing. It feels like I've done something with my day. I don't like days full of meetings. And I think the further you move up the management ladder, the more meetings you have. And in the end, it's just empty words. It's not for me, really. So I like being at the digital coalface, just digging away and seeing what I can come up with. But the book, writing the book was cathartic, to say the least. And obviously I'm still going through it. But it was really good. I've always wanted to write a book. Yeah.
But that's definitely you, especially because I think it kind of ties in with the youandi.london. It's kind of, you're giving something there. You're giving the public who are interested, your take on where you spent the last 25 years of your career. Do you know what I mean? So that's got to be, very, very satisfying. And so I could, see how you can get a lot out of that personally.
It's just about giving a little back, right? Because we've all got, if you get to my age, then you've got a certain amount of experience and information locked in there and knowledge, and I think others should have that. And I think if I had someone that could give me what I give them at the beginning of their career, they could just miss out so many bad experiences.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
so I think if you can, instead of trying to be an intern, just create a great book. And how you create a great book is go away and create something. And once you create that one thing, then create another thing and another and another, and you'll you'll understand what you have to do to become a designer, digital designer.
Yeah.
And it's not overnight. It takes 3, 4, 5 months, however long you've got. But if you can just sit down and do it every single day and create a habit of doing, you'll be surprised at what you can achieve in 3 or 4 months. Yeah. That's
good. That's good. I've got to say, behind your left shoulder, can I see like a video game there? Which one is it?
So the cabinet is Defender. So part of my misspent youth was in snooker halls and arcades down in Clacton and Brighton and things like this. And we had these games like Pac-Man and Space Invaders.
Yeah, Space Invaders, yeah. I remember that.
And so you'd have queues, 10 people deep, trying to put their 10p in. And this was a pivotal age for me. I was 12 years old.
I remember it well.
I was racing motorcycles along the Brighton. They used to call the Brighton Speed Trials. And so you'd have a quarter mile. He'd build a motorcycle and they'd put rockets on and see if they could do the quarter mile in 5 seconds. All this rubbish that old boys do with money, right? And my old man was one of those. He built a Vincent motorcycle and he'd go from 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds. Anyway, I wasn't interested in the bikes and the noise. I was interested in the arcade. And so I'd go there every year with him. And he'd give me £5, and I'd go to the arcade. I had £5 worth of 10p's, and I was 11 years old. And it was full of
like a billionaire.
It was amazing. I was around all these machines, and so I was around Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, Centipede, Defender, Missile Command. And this arcade machine here it's got the Defender decals, which means it's decked out in what a Defender machine looks like. But this machine's got actually 18,000 games on it.
Has it got a bomb jack on it? Have you played bomb jack?
Yeah,
it's on there, Bomb Jack. I love that. That was my game.
It's got every game. It's got every game that I ever experienced. Plus, it's got every PS1, PS2, PS3, Atari, Sega, Mega Drive,
Nintendo, all that.
Everything. Yeah. So you buy it in a package. So you can buy one that's got 6,000 or one's got 8,000. I just got the one with 18,000.
18,000 games in it. So how much?
Shall I tell you how many I play? 1.
2. Oh, really? The Defender game. That's it.
I play Defender and a game called Joust.
Right. Okay. So
I could have just asked for it with 2 games on, couldn't I? Really?
You want the whole lot. You want to know the whole lot. So, how much time do you spend on that nowadays? I mean,
I play every day.
Do you really? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, we have to, right? Because otherwise I'm sitting down in front of this bloody computer 8 hours a day. So I get up and then I play my game or go for a run. But generally, I have to play the game because my son comes over. Or he's coming over tonight. And he was the champion at the game I was champion of.
Really?
So I've got to get higher than him, right? So that's the goal, right?
So who's got the highest score now? You or your son?
No, I've beaten his high score by 4. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm the king right now. That's important.
What's going on? That's fantastic. So video games have been your passion, one of your...
They were. I mean, we got to 15, 16, then BMXs came out. And so I left the Ataris behind and I bought a BMX and then I was racing BMXs. There's always been something for me. And then it was motorcycles, classic cars, my career. I was in bands, so it's...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we'll come on to that. Brilliant, that's fantastic. Okay. So that's my thing, music. I mean, playing the drums. I mean, I've even got my practice pads here. I don't know if you can see that. Do you know what I mean?
No, I can't see that. Oh, yes, I can, yeah.
You see it now?
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
Practice pads here.
It's not exactly a drum kit, though, is it?
No, but my drum kit, I've got my percussion, but I'm
in the office, under your table, right?
I've got a big enough office like you. I can't have a whole drum kit in my office, for goodness sake. But I've got my sticks down here, so as well. So every day I have a little play every day. I miss my calling.
Okay, cool.
And but yes, okay, that's fantastic. So let's get to know you a little bit then. So let's kind of dig a bit deeper. So let me ask you. So you're clearly an Apple guy over an Android guy, right?
Yeah, it's always been Apple. I think if you are creative, I was drawn to it the day it came out. The company I was working at got two CXs, and so we went from typography, which was like a typesetting machine, which was code based, and you couldn't see what you were doing. So we'd key in the code, and then you'd key in where you wanted the words to appear and the images and stuff like that. And then you'd have to print it out, and then you'd measure, and then you go back and make those corrections. But when Apple Macs came along, they actually showed you what you were doing. And so the day my company got them, which was the second day of release, because it was one of these big companies, sitting around an Apple Mac.
Life-changing scenario. Life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Superb. Yeah. Okay. Football or rugby?
Oh God, neither. I mean, I used to like football, but it got to a point where I went to Arsenal. I've been an Arsenal fan. I went to Arsenal, I think, in the 90s, and I watched Dennis Bergkamp and Thierry Henry, and I think they were on £150,000 a week at that time, and we lost. And the whole day cost me about 120 quid with my son, and I said, I'm never going again. It's just such a piss poor performance, and they still got their 150 grand, which is now dwarfed by the wages of 350 grand. So I don't plug in anymore. I don't know who the players are. But I tell you what, as soon as Arsenal start winning, then I'm there. Okay. Fair weather supporter. Only when we win am I interested. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Fair enough. No, I love football over rugby. I'm a Newcastle guy, for the record, a bit random, but I love it up there. And I didn't support anybody prior to supporting Newcastle when I had Asprilla and David Ginola. But
Ginola was good, right? Yeah, you had a good team. You had a good team. When Keegan was your manager,
that's right. Bobby Robson as well.
Yeah.
Great times. Yeah. Okay, skiing or a beach holiday?
Well, it's not beach because I'm ginger, right? So I've got this translucent white skin, and so as soon as we pop our heads out, we just get
blitzed.
We just burst into flames. So I've got an agreement with the sun that I don't go out in the sun and he doesn't burn me or my progeny, because my kids have all got ginger hair.
I love that. Okay.
So I always set the boy. He's got brown, but the two girls have got ginger. So skiing. I used to go skiing. I've been a couple of times. I'm used to it, as though I go every year. I went in my 20s.
Right.
But, I keep thinking of going back, and thoughts become actions. Unfortunately, those thoughts have remained thoughts, and every year I think, I need to go skiing, but ultimately I don't.
So what do you do then for holidays?
Well, holidays. I mean, last year we went to New York, and
great. So you love it.
Yeah, the kids wanted to go, and so I thought, okay, let's take the plunge. Let's go to New York. And a day before we went, my ex-wife's dog ate one of my children's passports. The day before. No, this is a true story. So so she calls me up and she said, "Okay, got a slight problem. The dog's eaten the passport." What? No, the dog's eaten Kitty's passport. God. So I said, "Well, where's the damage?" She goes, "Well, it's near the photograph." So I called the passport office, and they said, if the photograph's damaged in any way, you cannot leave the country, right? So we had a bit of a panic session, and we managed to rebook the holiday, but 5 weeks later, and we went in the hottest week of the year.
In New York? Oh my God.
New York. And so I was ginger in the hottest place on earth, and it was full of people working and construction teams, and it was just... And I went with 2 teenage girls, and all they wanted to do was shop. All they wanted to do was shop.
Oh my gosh!
And so,
How long did you go for?
We went for a week.
For a week, okay.
I mean, I think New York is a long weekend. I think a week is too long. We went to a few shows and the restaurants, which was fantastic. Empire State Building, Central Park. We did all the things that Brits do in New York. And I think I just got so bored of the shopping. I was just like, right, if I ever come back here, it's going to be the weekend. But I did play New York in a band. And that was a better trip. Yeah, we did a tour of New York.
So what did you play then? What instrument did you play?
Bass guitar and rhythm guitar.
Oh, really, yeah? I didn't know that. Fantastic.
Yeah. Yes, because we're wildly mediocre and you would have never have heard of us.
Yeah, well, likewise. I've been in so many bands as well, and it's just, you need a bit of luck and be in the right place, right time to get recognised. Yeah. But I mean, do you still pick up the bass now or the guitar?
No, I mean, I'm too old, right? So,
no, you're not. No, that's bullshit.
Well, I mean, I don't make music in a band and go and play to 3 people and a dog.
Would you like playing? I mean, do you like plug it in the amp?
I mean, I still play. Me and the singer still get together, and me and the guitarist, and every now and then that old band would get together and we'd have a rehearsal, which is brilliant because it's a time machine, right? You're no longer how old we are, which is 53 for me. I'm now 23.
Yeah.
Those people that make me 23, and we go through all the songs, and it's like it was yesterday.
Yeah, brilliant.
The music was very important, and every now and then it still is very important. Yeah. Life gets in the way.
Definitely. Now, also, what sort of stuff did you play? What sort of music did you play?
Well, we were kind of like a Stone Roses, Crowded House, Beatles. We had our main songwriter.
Indie kind of vibe.
Yeah, indie. So it was it's 90, 92, 93, and then 2000. And our lead songwriter could turn a phrase. He was very good, and he was a good songwriter. and we got into a film, and we got into computer games, and we got a
Okay.
publishing deal, and we were quite good. We just weren't good enough.
Right, but it's timing, isn't it? Timing as well, you know.
It's timing, and you need to be all pointing in the right direction at the right time for that enthusiasm to get into the van and play 3 gigs a week and blah blah blah, and put everything else on hold. And I think at that point I had a 1-year-old son, and I think we did one band for 3 years, and we were on the cusp there. We did some computer game music, and we got a publishing deal, and then that band imploded, and then I was with another band, and we got another deal, and we did a tour.
Wow, fantastic. You've had like 2 or 3 deals. And what was the main?
Yeah, we've had a couple of deals, but they've been mainly publishing. But we've done a movie, and we've had computer game money, and you know, we've done a bit.
What was the name of the band then? The
first band was unfortunately named after me, called Ruocco, because I was the guy that booked rehearsal rooms.
Right.
And the first gig we got was from the person who owned the rehearsal room. She says, I put on a night and a band's dropped out. Do you want the slot? And I was so overjoyed that someone was offering us a slot. I was like, yeah, we'll take it. And it didn't occur to me that we didn't have a name. And then when we went to the gig, they introduced us as Ruocco, because I was the guy that booked all the rehearsals. And so every gig, every rehearsal, I said, we need to change our name. And every gig we're going, yeah, we will. And in the end, it stuck. I mean, it's not exactly Bon Jovi, but yeah.
Right, no, it's cool, man. It's cool. Brilliant. Yeah. So out of the bass guitar or rhythm guitar, which one would you prefer? Would you rather pick up?
I mean, bass I was forced to play because our bass player left. And no one else wanted to jump on bass. So I did a bit of a McCartney without the talent. I moved from acoustic guitar over to the bass guitar,
right?
And I learned how to play bass. I mean,
it should be quite easy, shouldn't it?
It was all right. I could hold a tune, I could take it in a certain direction, but I was no Flea, right? So
yeah, right, okay, yeah.
Pretty good, but I mean, I would always go back to acoustic because that's where I used to write songs. Yeah,
more musical. Yeah. Mate, it's fantastic. So look, I mean, we're pretty much done. I mean, now. Again, just want to recap to our listeners and viewers about Michael Ruocco, individuals who don't know who he is. In the UI and UX space, I mean, legendary. And he's a real nice guy as well.
Not really legendary, everyone. I'm just old.
He's well known. And he's a nice guy as well. Love to, I'm every now and then we'll hook up in London and he'll give me bollocking. And,
for being too tall.
Like, I can't believe how tall you are. You saw me 6 months ago. Do you know what I mean? Can't get over. It's like, really? It's just hilarious. So funny. But I mean, life's too short. That's what I say, to worry about it.
Yeah.
But no, great guy. And I can't wait to see his book. Mate. So it's coming out next 2-3 weeks' time, you reckon, yeah?
Next 2 or 3 weeks. So I'll send you a copy in, and then, I'll be getting on that marketing train to see if I can push it and get more than 6 people to buy it, including my mother.
Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. Well, I mean, look, Michael Ruocco is spelled Ruocco. If you're interested in reaching out to Michael's on LinkedIn, or reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with Michael. And but yeah, great guy. If you want to kind of get a bit more of an insight into design, UI and UX design, then he's your guy. So thank you so much, Mr. Ruocco. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian, and let's catch up shortly, mate.
100%.